Well, welcome guys to the White Jacket series. And I guess at some level, part of you might be asking, well, what on earth is the White Jacket series? Well, what it is you guys are my guinea pigs. This is something new. I've not done it before, and I'm trying it on you. And here's the essence of it. I feel like, as the fellow that's charged with working with staff development, one of my jobs is to try to reach into the organization and help with the stuff that we're doing every day, right? Sometimes it's management, sometimes it's specific tools, whatever it might be. I need a voice and I need an opportunity to try to connect with you with my thoughts. But A, I can't get you all into a meeting with any regularity because we're all super busy, and I recognize that. And the other thing is B, is we don't have a lot of time. So I've got to give it to you in small bite-sized chunks and just let you be able to deal with it in a process or a time frame that works for you. So I created this thing called the White Jacket series, and anybody who delivers material here will wear the jacket, and we'll just talk about the stuff that matters to us and progress through a developmental process and see if we can, take a swing at that. So at the end of today's session, what I'm really going to ask you to do is, this is going to be 5 minutes. I want you to send me an email. You need to let me know if this is going to work for you, if this is going to be helpful, and if you would process material like this with some regularity. I don't care if you don't read them all or watch them all, but I do want to know that this is helpful. So please let me know, okay? I'm expecting emails from you. All right, so here's my thought. I'm just going to jump right in and tell you that the one thing that I wanted to talk about today. I think it's ridiculous that it's already July and we're knocking on the door of August. And so along with this season, this window of time, comes a couple of things. One is we start looking at budgets for 2012 and starting to think about, gosh, where are we going to be, next year, and what does that need to look like? And then more importantly, along with the whole budget thing comes the idea of how do we make next year better than this year? How do we engage more strongly with the congregation? How do we answer more accurately what God is putting on our hearts to do? How do we fulfill the Great Commission and the vision of Gateway better in 2012 than we did in 2011? Well, I think one of the important questions within that conversation is planning for next year. And one of the best ways to plan for next year is to get your team engaged in helping you plan out what's going on. Because if they can have a say in what tomorrow is going to look like, they'll be much more engaged. And so it's just a great strategy. But the problem is, if you get your team together and you invite them to say what you'd like to see be better next year, they're going to have to tell you what's not right about this year, and some might not feel safe to say that. And I'm sure that all of us are building environments that make it safe for people to say challenging things. But let's face it, some folks don't feel as safe to do that as others. So I want to give you a strategy for ways to get the team to be able to say or ask the unaskable questions, to say the unmentionable things that rock the boat and that propose new ideas, that potentially innovate, and then have risk loaded within those statements. And the risk is I might get rejected. I might get kicked out. I might get ostracized. This might be an antagonizing thought, and I don't want to play it. So I have a strategy for you to be able to get all of those unanswerable questions out on the table in a safe way. All right, are you ready? So here's what I need you to do, or this is what I'm proposing. Get your team together and let them come with some paper and pens in a relaxed environment. Tell them we're going to strategize about 2012. And then as the very first exercise, ask them to do this. Split a page in half, right? And on the top half, answer this question. What brands that I recognize are you interacting with every day? So the very first exercise, the top of the page is, what brands that are out in the world today do I recognize and am I interacting with every day? So here are some of mine. These are brands that I use and come across and interact with some frequency. These are brands that I recognize. I drive one of those, and I eat here on occasionally. And my daughter eats those all the time, and so I see them around all the time. And I go to this place. And so just get your team to connect with brands or organizations or companies that they can recognize, and just start writing 5 or 8 or 10 brands that they strongly recognize. Okay? Then the next exercise is, once you've done that, think about what your department is, and then say which brand most strongly represents, or which brand would you pick that could represent Gateway and the department that, or not Gateway, but the department that you're in right now most effectively. So let's say, everybody's doing it, and they're not talking, and they're keeping it to themselves, and they come up with, we think that the brand that we like the most, or most strongly represents who we are right now, is Starbucks, right? So let's say it's the group's department, Randy's department, and his team says, okay, we think Starbucks most powerfully represents who we are today, right? Okay, then the next part of the sheet, you say, all right, what brand most represents then where you think we should be in a couple of years? Where are we trying to go? And sometimes they'll give you the same answer. Sometimes the company will shift. Well, we are Tom's Shoes right now, and we want to be Nike, in the next couple of years. Okay, so now you've got two branding ideas that are helping you put there's some embodiments within those brands that tell you things about how they think about the department. Okay, so then here's the next exercise. You have everybody take their sheets, put them aside, put them underneath their pad, start with a clean slate, and then write this word at the top of the sheet. Okay, so if today groups is most accurately represented by Starbucks, right? Then pose this question, and here's the big idea. What if Starbucks was leading groups for the next year? What if Starbucks was charged with the responsibility of developing groups for the next year? And here's the thing, we're not bringing into question the why, right? And the why being the 4 B's of Gateway, that we want people to belong, that we want them to believe rather first in Jesus, to belong to our tribe, to become fully devoted disciples, and to build the kingdom with us and in a greater kingdom perspective. The why stays the same. Those things don't change. But how we do it and what that looks like, those things are the pieces that Starbucks is now in charge of. And so Starbucks is proposing that we make these changes. See, now it's no longer your team that's asking the unaskable questions. Starbucks is proposing it. And it gives them a veiled face behind which to present ideas that they believe in and that they think will genuinely benefit the organization. And so there are 6 areas that I think are most helpful for you to be able to ask questions around for your department. And so here are those questions. The first one is structure. Okay, ask them questions and say, what would Starbucks change about our structure? The way we are structured as an organization. How can we improve this? What would Starbucks say about that? The next one that you'd want to consider is, what is the strategy for moving forward? And hidden within the concept of strategy is the whole question of what if. What if we get there and Starbucks was in charge? What would that look like? And so think about strategy, or the what ifs, or how we get to where we're going to go through Starbucks' eyes, or looking at it through Starbucks' perspective. Then the next one would be, what do our systems do, and how do they help us get to this new Starbucks-infused outcome? Right? What systems do we have in place? And by systems, I mean, what is the way in which we do what we do? Right? For example, the way that the deacons collect the money on a Sunday is they have a system. They've got a cart on some wheels. There's a set number of guys. They accompany one another. They move in a particular pattern as they go. There's a system for the way that works. Well, the reason it's set up is because it creates a particular result. So what systems are in your department that create a particular result? And if Starbucks were in charge of those systems, and you got to keep reminding them, okay, think Starbucks, what would they say? What would they think? What would they change? And nothing is out of the realm of possibility. There are no wrong answers here. So, even if stuff sounds a little weird, just roll with it, because we're just trying to get all this information out. We're trying to invite them to think freely and to innovate. Right? So the next one would be the style. And for those pastors who are habitual speakers, are you observing my alliteration here? I worked very hard on this idea. The style, or the other version here would be that this is culture. What styles or culture best embodies the pattern that we're trying to put into place were Starbucks to be in charge of our department? What style, or what is the culture in which we do this? Are we going to have an aggressive style? Are we going to have an including style? And if you asked some people what the Starbucks style might be, what is that style? Is it communal? Is it relational? Is it friendly? So there's all kinds of key words that you can write underneath any one of these ideas and just kind of get new thoughts about where your organization is and how you're progressing toward 2012. Okay, the next one would probably be what skills do we need to include in our project? And if Starbucks were in charge of determining which skills those would be, then what would those be? What would they look like, right? So put that out there, have that conversation. The next one is, what do we have to do with our staff, if anything, in order to be able to accomplish what we're talking about? Are there some changes within our staff that need to happen? And by that I mean, is there some moving around within positions that would make this more accomplishable? Or do we reach beyond ourselves into a volunteer pool in order to accomplish what Starbucks might need in order to do what we're thinking about for groups for 2012? Right? So knock the borders down, knock off the walls that kind of stop you from thinking out into those different areas, and engage the staff that are with you, your department, and ask them what changes to the staff themselves need to be made. Maybe there's some extra training. Maybe they need a deep soak in a particular area that would strengthen them, because if Starbucks were running groups, they feel very strongly about strong corporate training and everybody looking the same and feeling the same and having the language. And so we've got to dip ourselves again in the language of Starbucks in order to do this the right way. So what has to happen here, right? And then the final one, there's just 7 of them. The final one is what subordinate, I know it's a fancy word, goals are out there. And by subordinate goals, I mean kind of, they're infusing goals that make the very thing happen, but they're not overarching goals. They don't interfere with the vision. They don't adjust the mission statement. But they're subordinate goals that carry the culture and carry the direction so that it remains sustained. These 7 ideas, seen through the lenses of a brand that they strongly recognize represents your department, really facilitates the opportunity for your staff to inject some of their own ideas without being seen, kind of as a spy, and to ask the unaskable questions, to say the unspeakable things, to innovate through the lens of someone else, and they don't have to take responsibility for it, because, hey, it's not me, it's Starbucks that's making that proposal. And in the end, any of this stuff that you end up actually implementing, because 2012 would look stronger with some of these ideas there, and can be theirs in the long run, and they'll know it, but it'll make your department stronger, and I think it'll benefit the organization as a whole. Okay, that's it. That's an example of something that I had in mind, something that I wanted to let you have. Don't forget to email me. I need to know from you if you think that this mechanism could be of some value to you in the future. All right, hope to see you next time on the White Jacket series.